Hello, I'm back. My name is Julio. This is Whiskers. We're going to show you how to do a hand-painted texture today. And I recorded it ahead of time and sped it up rather than doing it real time because hand-painted textures tend to take quite a while. And a lot of it's just kind of boring. It's just rendering it out basically. So I have the recording open here, so I'm just gonna press play and kind of talk through it, I guess, and tell you the steps I'm doing. So yeah, I started with a 512 document and I started sketching out large shapes and then wanted to balance it out with some smaller shapes. And so I have like that row at the top of smaller little things. And later on I actually end up adding like some metal trim to it as well to add some more variety, so it's not just all these rocky brick shapes. I'm putting a light in the scene, or sorry, in 3D mode right now. I'm putting I guess just like casting a light on the like side of the bricks. So I usually put my light at around 45 degrees for the texture. So you'll notice that the tops are a little more than 45 degrees. So the tops of each of these bricks gets a lot of light. The side gets a little bit of light. And then the right-hand side doesn't get much, and then the bottom gets the least amount. And I try to treat these like 3D objects. Oh, here I'm just brought in a photo of Nicolas Cage, and I'm using the clone stamp tool to blend it together. And I brought in a bunch more pictures. I'm just using these for color variation because sometimes it's hard when you're starting with just like a base, not a lot of color. It's kind of difficult to paint on it. So I like to bring in photos, and I usually use photos of Nicolas Cage. Right now I'm kind of adding in some more details, cracks, edge highlights. Again, it's really important to light these like they're 3D objects. So I have I have actual lighting cast on them, but then I also have a bit of ambient occlusion as well. So whenever there's a brick that's sticking out more than the other bricks, that brick will cast just a slight soft shadow on the ones around it. And here for this whole thing, I've just been using a round brush. Just one of the default round brushes, because I know it's inevitable somebody's going to ask what brush are you using. So yeah, just a round brush. So you can totally make your own. I have a video tutorial on how to make your own brush if you would like to. So I'm kind of chipping off these edges. Anybody that does a lot of sculpting, this is kind of like using the clay polish on 100% or the trim dynamic at a high amount in ZBrush. Just kind of lopping off those edges, and I'm lighting them according to the light in the scene. So on that skinny brick on the right there, you can kind of see the top left corner is a bit brighter than the bottom right corner on it. I'll see if I can like annotate that in YouTube or something. Whenever I chip off an edge, I just put like a thin highlight line around it. I never used to do this, but then I realized, well, typically I bake out a curvature map or a cavity map for my ZBrush sculpts and my bakes. And I find that really helps pop things out a bit. So I started doing that for hand-painted textures as well. And I find it works pretty well. Sometimes it's a bit overwhelming, so I try to avoid putting those edge highlights close to the shadowed areas. So you can kind of see where these bricks in the middle of the file are meeting that strip that separates the big ones from the small ones. There's not a lot of edge highlights in there. This part takes forever, by the way. I think this whole thing was like 3 hours or something. I don't really know how efficient this is for like an actual game pipeline. Maybe if it was for a game with, like World of Warcraft or something where it's heavily dependent on hand-painted textures, but typically I think for doing like a tiling wall texture, I would just sculpt it in ZBrush, bake it out. I mean, it would take the same amount of time, and you'd have probably a bit more control over it. I'm also painting this all in one layer, which also isn't very good for production pipeline, but this is called working destructively. So if I wanted to change the color, it'd be fairly difficult. You don't want to generally work like this. But I knew this was a portfolio piece, and I'm kind of like my own art director in that sense, so I'm not too worried about having to change things. One thing I did change was this strip of brick down here. I turned it into metal. It starts gold, and I think I changed it to like a more bronze color after. So this part here, I've made a new layer to sketch out these little nubbins on top of this for a little extra design, because I realized a lot of the shapes in my document were kind of similar in size, right? Like all these bricks are kind of similar. It's just the ones at the bottom that are large. I didn't really have any small details for balance. And I was procrastinating. And then I opened this up in Maya as well and applied it to like a cylinder and raised out some of the areas with edge loops on a plane. I find it just always helps just to kind of like test how it's going to look in 3D, find areas that repeat too much, you know. I started putting like those lines behind those trapezoid shape, or trapezoid? I don't know, those like rectangular brick shaped things. But I didn't end up liking the lines because they just looked a bit too man-made, which, I mean, obviously this is man-made, but maybe a bit too futuristic or something. There's a lot of straight lines, so I just put like cracked rock behind it instead. Now we're almost at the end. Yeah, this is just a really quick video. I think there's like lots of tutorials on how to hand paint. I just thought I'd... Yeah. And then I did like a brightness and contrast. I use, if you go to image adjustments and replace color, I use that a ton to replace the colors. So like later, I think I replaced the gold to more bronze color. It's just very easy to do that. Here I've made a new layer, and I'm just painting some of these bricks red and some of them green. And then I'm going to set this layer to like a really low opacity. I think I set it to either soft light or color. And I just put it at like, I think like 5 to 10% opacity, something like that. And I've darkened these bricks and I added a bit more of occlusion there. Brightened the scene, or brightened the image. And there I'm kind of changing the color of the metal. And yeah, that's it. Also totally unrelated, but I actually just bought Camtasia, so I was able to like record these tutorials. It was kind of expensive, so if you want to, it'd be cool if you like followed me on Facebook or my ArtStation or something. That way, if I ever like start a big art project, I have like people that I can, you know, contact and show it to and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks for watching.